Hello, my name is Chris Rodriguez. I'm the director of the ABLE National Resource Center, and I want to welcome everybody to our latest webinar, which is part of our ABLE Program Spotlight Series. I'm very excited to be, we are very excited to be featuring this month the National ABLE Alliance, which is a group of about 15 different ABLE programs from across the country. They're going to be giving us some great information about those programs, telling us a little bit about why they came together and what differentiates them from other ABLE programs. We're also going to be doing a quick ABLE Basics lesson at the end for those of you folks that may not have as much information but are still curious about what ABLE is. And then I'm very excited to have Rachel Mast, who is an ABLE account owner from the great state of Kansas with us, and she's going to share a little bit about her experience with ABLE. So let me go ahead and get through some housekeeping issues. The audio for today's webinar is being broadcast through your computer. Please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel. If you accidentally close that panel, you can reopen it by going to the Communicate menu at the top of the screen and choosing Join Audio Broadcast. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer or would simply prefer to listen by phone, the dial-in information is on the right hand of this slide and is also included in your registration information that you should have received. In terms of captioning, real-time captioning is provided during this webinar. The captions can be found in the Media Viewer panel, which appears in the lower right-hand corner of the webinar platform. If you want to make the Media Viewer panel larger, you can simply minimize other panels such as the chat, the Q&A, and/or the participants panels. For Q&A, please use the Q&A box to submit any questions you have during the webinar, and we will direct those questions accordingly during the Q&A portion of the webinar, which is at the end. If you're listening by phone and not logged into the webinar, you may also ask questions by emailing questions to kausенbach@ndi-inc.org. Please note this webinar is being recorded and the materials will be placed on the ABLE National Resource Center website at the link that you see below. We typically try and get that up about no more than a week after the live presentation. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box to send a message to the host, NDI admin, or you may also email kausebach@ndi-inc.org. Okay. So as I said before, I'm extremely excited to have such a talented group of individuals and such a deep level of expertise presenting today and on the panel. Again, I'm Chris Rodriguez. I'm the director of our ABLE National Resource Center. In addition, we have Scott Gates, who is General Counsel for the Kansas State Treasurer's Office. We have Karen Austin, who's the Deputy Treasurer of the state of Iowa. We have Rob Percival, Senior Vice President for Strategic Products at Ascensus. We also have Ben Mendelson, who's the Vice President of Deposit Product Services at Fifth Third Bank. And I'm very excited to have Rachel Mast, who is a Kansas ABLE account owner who will be sharing her experience with ABLE towards the end of the webinar. So I want to say thank you to every one of our presenters and panelists for taking the time to share your expertise with ABLE with us today. We're very excited to get your insight. So just very quickly, a snapshot of our agenda. We're going to start off by giving it over to the National ABLE Alliance for their presentation on their ABLE programs. Afterwards, we will be giving a brief presentation on ABLE Basics. This will talk about who's qualified for ABLE programs, what the funds can be spent on, how they might interact with federal benefits, things that are basically consistent across all ABLE programs. After that, we're going to meet Rachel Mast, again, an ABLE account owner, to share her experiences with ABLE and her ABLE program. And then at the end, we will have time for Q&A, so I encourage folks to be entering in your questions into the Q&A box as instructed a few slides ago. So with that, I'm excited to hand it over to the National ABLE Alliance to give us some great information about their consortium of states, what they do, what their programs look like, and how they differentiate themselves from other ABLE programs. So go ahead and take it away. Okay, there we go. Ben, we have you. And Karen.
Is Scott on the line?
Yes, I am. Karen, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Sorry, I was having trouble getting in. So I wanted to begin by talking about how we formed the National ABLE Alliance. We started working as a collection of treasurer's offices and other agencies that would be responsible for administering ABLE programs immediately after the ABLE Act was passed. And our goal was to try to pool our resources as states to try to bring them together a program that was as low cost and efficient as possible, knowing that if we tried to go out for bid on our own, we might not bring enough market share to the table in order to track a quality partner like we have in a Census College Savings. What was important to us about is each of the member states kind of have an own vote and group decision making, and each of the member states also owns the assets in their own plan. So if for some reason in the future, when this contract is over, if those states were wanting to go another direction, they could do that. Anyone can invest in our plans regardless of what state you live in. But we have 15 member states, and you can see from the map here on the slide that it's a pretty diverse group of states, all the way from Alaska to North Carolina, a number of Midwest, Western states, and Eastern states as well. Karen, you want to take it from here?
Sure. Chris, can you advance the slide? That was the map. That's the map that Scott referred to on the states that do participate in the National ABLE Alliance slide. So while the broad talents and deep experience that the membership in this organization can bring to the states joining the Alliance, we feel that it's also a tremendous benefit to the individuals who are investing in one of these plans. Since our membership crosses different agencies with different areas of expertise, some of us are in treasurer's offices, some of us are in investment offices, some of us are in human services offices, we're able to leverage investment management specialists, legislative and regulatory arenas, human services, legal services. We just have a wide breadth of experience at the table anytime we're working together to try to make this program stronger and better for the individuals that are investing in it. We think that's a great asset for not just the states that are part of the Alliance, but also for the participants in the program. In addition, a number of our Alliance members, so those people that have been at the table that are part of creating this National ABLE Alliance, play leadership roles at the national level in different legislative and regulatory areas of both 529 and ABLE programs, and that national exposure, again, is one of the things that we hope helps to make the ABLE plan, not just our plans better, but to make ABLE plans in general better. Slide. So one of the things that sets the National ABLE Alliance apart is, again, we are a group of states that have come together with a common goal, and it was a great experience for all of us that were involved to actually be able to bring that goal to fruition. But we are a group, we're a bipartisan consortium, so we have states from all across the country that collaborate to meet the needs of diverse memberships. We engage in a democratic decision-making process, which means an equal vote for each state, large and small, but we do most of that through consensus. When we say a decision-making process with votes, what we're doing is working together to find the best solutions for these programs in a very new industry. We collaborate in working groups to try to, when we recognize that maybe we have something we need to work on to make our programs better, we work together, again, bringing all of that expertise to the table that we talked about earlier. So each member state, although we are part of a larger group, we have an active voice to influence the direction that this program is going in such a young and evolving industry, and we're really excited to be a part of it. I'm going to slide, Chris, if you can advance the slide, then I'll turn it over back to Scott.
One of the issues that we've worked really hard on has been our oversight of the programs to make sure not only we've got great quality investments, but we also wanted to make sure that we were protecting our account owners, and particularly those with intellectual disabilities. We require, and most of our states require, that you submit documentation concerning guardianship or other types of legal authority that an individual may have rights in order to control the account owner's funds. We just think it's important, instead of just checking a box or telling us you have that actual authority, to demonstrate it. We found when we've talked with the guardian communities and the other legal communities in our states that that's an important asset, that they want to make sure that those individuals who do have capacity are exercising those authority over their funds, and then also that those who don't, we've gone through a legal process to demonstrate that somebody needs to take care of that for them. That oversight topic also leads us to a discussion of the investment options and the cost, and I'm going to turn it over to Rob to talk about those.
All right, thanks, Scott. So the National ABLE Alliance offers a host of high-quality plan features, including low-cost, index-based investment options. The concept of working as an alliance really brings operational efficiencies to bear, which allow each member state to provide a high-quality and still low-cost program. Each plan offers an exclusive, fully integrated Fifth Third FDIC-insured checking account option that's available with a debit card as well as check writing capability. What's unique about the debit card option is that it directly accesses the funds in the ABLE account, as opposed to withdrawing the funds from the ABLE account and then loading onto a prepaid card. So it kind of helps to minimize the steps needed there to access your funds. The plans also offer outstanding customer service with call center support available from 8 to 5 each weekday. Call center support also available for non-English speakers, whether it be through translation services that we provide or from multilingual call center reps that we have here in the servicing center. And the plans also offer ADA-compliant websites. Moving on to the next slide, talking about the investment options, the National ABLE Alliance plans all have easy-to-understand investment options. We recognize that for many ABLE savers, investing can be confusing, so we've tried to make it easy as possible. The available investment options utilize highly rated index-based underlying funds. There's a range of 6 investment options, asset allocation options that closely match goals and the level of comfort with risk, ranging from aggressive options that seek higher returns down to conservative options that place capital preservation over growth. So the Alliance member plans offer choices for every investor. And then all cash allocations within those portfolios are invested in a high-yield savings option from Sallie Mae Bank. I'm moving to the next slide. So again, just talking about the investment products, those asset allocation portfolios feature really highly rated index-based funds from the likes of BlackRock, Vanguard, and Charles Schwab, which are all trusted brands with long histories. Because we don't offer proprietary investments that we manage our own, we're really able to partner with some of the most highly respected index-based investment providers to create customized portfolios that are tailored to the broad investment needs of ABLE savers. Now, to talk a little bit about the integrated checking and debit card option in more detail is Ben Mendelson from Fifth Third Bank. Ben?
Option that allows direct access to funds to pay for covered expenses through debit card checks, ATM networks, and direct debits from the account. Some of the great features that we're able to provide through the plans are an FDIC-insured option, insured to the maximum extent under the law, as well as interest on funds on deposit in the account. The money in the account held in the checking option stays covered by the sheltered plan and is withdrawn simultaneously as a payment is made. So there's no need to plan ahead for a withdrawal prior to making a purchase. You can access the funds directly. You also don't have to worry about whether funds that you've withdrawn are still covered while you are planning or waiting to make a purchase. The debit card access with chip security and MasterCard zero liability protections provides access to a huge network of nationwide fee-free ATMs of 54,000 plus ATMs without a fee if you need cash for a purchase, as well as we also offer a branch network of over 1,100 offices across our footprint where a existing customer could withdraw funds as well. Just as a reminder, the accounts can only be opened through the plan and not in our branches. We also allow other payment options such as check writing and electronic debits. This allows for convenience as well as the ability to make large purchases directly from the plan where maybe some merchants or vendors wouldn't take a debit card for that large purchase. And finally, this is a safe, low-cost option compared to other traditional checking accounts in the general marketplace with no overdraft fees and low-cost options for other banking services like check orders. So, Rob, thanks for the time, and thank you to the National ABLE Alliance. I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thanks, Ben. If we could move the slide forward there, please. So another great feature in the National ABLE Alliance plans is UGift. UGift is a proprietary gifting platform that's easy, free to use, and lets ABLE account owners encourage family and friends to celebrate their milestones with the gift of ABLE savings in lieu of traditional gifts. Account owners can receive a unique UGift code, which can then be shared with any others and used at any time to contribute at ugiftable.com. It's really a great option for those who have traditionally been unable to give monetary gifts in the past due to the various resource restrictions, and has really been quite popular among our ABLE account holders. So I'll turn it back to Scott to talk a bit about contributions and fees.
Thank you, Rob. So the contribution limits for our program are the same as they are nationally for all ABLE accounts. You can contribute up to $15,000 a year. Some individuals with a disability that have earned income may also be able to increase an additional amount on top of that. Balances less than $100,000 are excluded from Social Security income tests. And some of our ABLE states have a tax deduction. Recently in Kansas, we just passed a tax deduction for our plan as well. The fees that we have in this program on an annualized basis range between 0.34% and 0.37%. And if I could just comment for a moment, this is a fee range we did not see in the beginning of 529 Education Savings Program. So to me, this demonstrates one of the things we were hoping to accomplish by pooling together our market share by bringing a number of states together. Hopefully by having a larger market, we'll be able to see those fees continue to go down. We do have quarterly account maintenance fees, however. Those are $11.25 per quarter if you use e-delivery, and that goes up to $15 per quarter if you choose paper delivery. You know, those quarterly account maintenance fees are something that many 529 education saving plans had in the beginning of their existence. And this is a place where we kind of have to cover the operating expenses of the program, and we hope those fees will go down as we continue to grow the size of the program. And of course, there are some other fees associated with the checking option as well that Ben discussed. Karen is going to now take us over and wrap us up.
All right, thanks a lot. So the important thing now is how do you open up an account with one of the National Alliance plans. So we'll move to the next slide. So the states, we talked about 15 states that participated in. So each of these 15 states have a unique website. You can visit any of them by going to our joint website, which will be on the next slide. But these states right here are the ones that you can be a part of the National ABLE Alliance. If we just go to the next slide. We want to just make sure everybody knows it only takes a few minutes. You have to have that important information available to you. But if you go to savewithable.com, you will be able to link to any of those plans that we talked about, those 15 member states. And we're looking at hopefully growing as we continue to make the program even better. At this point, that concludes our portion of this. I'm going to turn it back over to Chris Rodriguez.
Great, great. Thank you so much for sharing that information. It's just incredible to see how creative you guys have been in terms of utilizing each of your state's resources in order to provide this incredible opportunity for people with disabilities, especially when we take into consideration how financially accessible your programs are. So it's just been wonderful to hear more about it. And I know that we're going to continue at the end of the webinar, towards the end of the webinar, with some Q&A, so we'll be able to highlight some of the things I think that you had mentioned and certainly address some other things related to your programs as well. But before we do that, I just wanted to kind of back up for those that may be on the webinar that perhaps aren't as familiar with what ABLE is. So I wanted to take this opportunity just to give a little history of the ABLE Act and talk about different characteristics of ABLE that are going to be consistent across all programs, no matter if you're part of the National ABLE Alliance programs or perhaps some of the other programs out in the country. These are going to be things that will be the same in each of them. So let's go ahead and get started so we have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So maybe you've just heard of ABLE as, you know, there's some kind of new opportunity out there and people with disabilities, it's good for people with disabilities, but I don't know a lot about it. So what is ABLE? Well, ABLE is technically, the technical name is the Stephen Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. And what it does is it amends the federal tax code to add this new Section 529A. Okay, so don't get bogged down in all that. But what that basically means is there's a new law that creates a new option for eligible people with disabilities to save money in a tax-exempt account or a tax-advantaged account that may be used for qualified disability expenses while at the same time keeping their eligibility for federal public benefits. So we're going to break down over the next few slides exactly who's eligible. What do I mean by eligible people with disabilities? What exactly is a tax-exempt account? What are qualified disability expenses? And what public benefits are we talking about in terms of how they might interact with the funds in an ABLE account? But before we do that, just some quick history. This law was, or this piece of legislation was signed into law in December of 2014, and it had overwhelming bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate by Republicans and Democrats alike. And what it does is, again, it authorizes states to establish these ABLE programs, such as the ones we just heard about through the National ABLE Alliance. But it does not require these states to actually open ABLE accounts. And furthermore, and this is important, and this is one of the reasons why I have such great respect for these different programs, is because the federal government actually does not provide any financial assistance to states who decide to open these programs up and thus give this opportunity to people with disabilities. They're oftentimes trying to piece it together with their own state funds. And in the case of the programs that we just heard about, they came together to sort of pool resources in order to provide this opportunity for their residents that have disabilities in their various states that we talked about. So it is important to note that not every state will have an ABLE program, and that there's no financial assistance from the federal government that provides for these, so states are really having to think creatively about how to provide these opportunities. The first ABLE account the first program was established in June of 2016. So just in a few days, we'll celebrate the second anniversary of the first ABLE account being opened, which is pretty exciting. Since then, there's about 35 different ABLE programs that are available out there, some of which only allow enrollment for their residents, and other ABLE programs allow for a national enrollment. We'll talk about what that looks like here in a little bit. But the takeaway from that is, regardless of whether or not your state has an ABLE program, provided that you meet the eligibility criteria that we'll talk about, you can today open up an ABLE account. Even if your state does not have an ABLE program, you can oftentimes enroll in a state outside of your particular residency. So let's talk about the ABLE basics real quick. So what are basic characteristics related to ABLE programs that are pretty much consistent no matter which program you're enrolled in, right? Well, there are eligibility requirements related to opening an ABLE account that speak to, number one, the age at which the individual first experienced his or her disability, and relate to the severity of that disability. And we'll dig into that in a little bit. Also, an eligible individual is not obligated to enroll in their state of residence. So again, I just want to highlight, even if your state, let's say you live in California, who has yet to open their ABLE program, as long as you meet the eligibility criteria, you can still enroll in another state's ABLE program, provided that that state has enrollment nationwide. And many, many do. Additionally, the designated beneficiary, that's a fancy name for the person with a disability, is the account owner, and that's an important characteristic of these ABLE programs that really differentiates them from other asset building tools such as a special needs trust or a third-party special needs trust or a pooled trust. So that's important to note. The designated beneficiary is the person with a disability, is the account owner. They're all the same person. It's always the same person, the person with a disability. Now that being said, if the designated beneficiary, for whatever reason, does not have the capacity to oversee their own account, or perhaps they just want to have some help with it, there's three types of individual that can have what's called signature authority, and this allows that individual to basically oversee the account on behalf of the person with a disability, who is still, even in those circumstances, still considered the account owner. So in order to have that signature authority, you have to be one of three types of people. First, you either have to be the parent if the person is a minor, you have to be the guardian of the individual if the person is an adult or of adult age, or the person with the disability who's the account owner has to give you power of attorney. If you're not one of those three, or if you don't have one of those three, then you are not allowed to have signature authority over the account. So I know a big question we typically have is, I'm a person's rep payee, but I'm not one of those three. Can I have signature authority? The answer would be no. In my circumstance, I have a brother down in Texas who meets all the eligibility criteria, has an ABLE account. Despite being his brother and knowing his needs and being very familiar with ABLE, I am not his guardian, and he's not given me power of attorney. Therefore, I cannot have signature authority over his account. So a couple examples there. Next, funds in the account are to be used for what's called qualified disability-related expenses. We'll talk about that in a bit. Also, assets in and distributions for qualified disability expenses will be disregarded or given special treatment when determining eligibility for most federal means-tested benefits. So that's what's really incredible about this new opportunity. That's what's really transformative about ABLE accounts, because in the past, people with disabilities oftentimes have very significant special health care needs, and many times those health care needs can only be addressed through programs such as Medicaid. And Medicaid, as many of us know, oftentimes has very stringent asset limits, meaning that if you have more than, in many circumstances, more than $2,000 worth of assets or money in your checking or savings, then you can be kicked off of those programs that provide you with essential supports and services to help you as a person with a disability live an independent life. So in the past, many people have had to choose between having the supports and services that allow them to be independent and being poor, typically shackled to a life of poverty as a result of needing those supports. Well, this is a great new day. It's a new opportunity. You can save significant amounts of money in your ABLE account without having to jeopardize or without losing those very significant supports and services provided by various federally funded means-tested benefits plans. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple slides. Additionally, Anybody can contribute into your ABLE account. That includes yourself. I know we had mentioned this earlier in the slides in the presentation by the National ABLE Alliance. If you're working, you can contribute funds into your own account, or in general, if you have money, you can contribute into your own account. Your friends can contribute in your account. Your family can contribute into your account. Your employer can contribute into your account. Anybody can contribute into your ABLE account. However, all those contributions combined in any given tax year are not to exceed $15,000, and we talked about this in the earlier slides. Now, there is a caveat to that. There's an exception for those ABLE account owners who also are earning income. You may be eligible to contribute above that $15,000, which is pretty neat. Okay. So we talked about some basic characteristics. Let's dig a little deeper into exactly who's eligible. Is this an opportunity for all people with disabilities? Unfortunately, no, it's not. You do have to meet certain types of requirements in order to be allowed to open an ABLE account. And again, these requirements are going to be consistent across all programs. So if you're eligible to open up a program, open up an account in Illinois, then you should be eligible to open up an account in Oregon or in Ohio or in Nebraska or wherever else. This is consistent. This is found in the federal law. So let's talk about it. So I like to think this as a two-pronged eligibility, right? So there's two things you have to meet. The first has to do with the age in which the person first experienced their disability. And what it says is that the person must have had an onset or first experienced their disability before their 26th birthday, right? So that doesn't mean that you can't be 34, 35, 40 years old and open up an ABLE account. That's fine. You can do that. My brother opened up his ABLE account when he was in his mid-30s. But what it does mean is that you would have had to first experience or had an onset of disability before age 26. So let's say that you had the unfortunate circumstance of getting into a car accident at age 24, and as a result you are paraplegic. Then yes, you would meet that requirement. Let's take the same person, same accident, same unfortunate outcome, 4 days after they turn 26. Would they then meet that requirement? Unfortunately not. And it is unfortunate because, you know, people, regardless of when you incur your disability, have significant needs and could benefit from having an account like that, which is why we're working with members of Congress to actually increase that age as soon as we can. So stay tuned on that. But right now, that's part of the criteria as it stands. So let's assume that you do meet that criteria. What's next? The second prong has to do with determining the severity of that disability. And the way that you meet this prong is twofold, one of two ways. One, if you're already receiving supplemental security income or Social Security disability benefits, then you're good to go. So if you're currently a beneficiary of SSI or SSDI and you meet the age criteria, you're good to go. Go ahead, choose a program that you feel best meets your needs and enroll and start taking advantage of the great benefits provided through ABLE. Let's say you meet the age criteria, but you're not, for whatever reason, you're not currently a beneficiary of SSI or SSDI. Then you can still be eligible to open up an ABLE account, but what you would need to do is you would need to get a disability certification. And this assures that you hold documentation of a physician's diagnosis and signature, and it confirms that you meet the functional disability criteria that's laid out in the ABLE Act. So that's another way that you can qualify without necessarily currently being eligible, or I should say currently being a beneficiary of SSI or SSDI. But that would require going to physician, them giving a diagnosis and confirming that you meet a certain level of severity that's laid out within the ABLE Act. Now, it's important to note, you don't necessarily have to provide that to any ABLE program, but you would have to sign, typically under penalty of perjury, that you have it, and if ever requested, you would have to be able to provide that. Okay, so we know a little bit about the basic characteristics. We know who's eligible now. Now, a big question is, what exactly can I use these funds for that I put into my ABLE account, or that friends and family contribute into my ABLE account, or what have you? Well, the funds in the account need to be used for helping pay for what's called qualified disability expenses. And those are expenses that relate to the beneficiary's blindness or disability are for the benefit of that beneficiary and help that person maintain or improve his or her health, independence, or quality of life. So you're probably thinking, wow, that's extremely broad. And that's exactly what we wanted, because we appreciate the fact that people with disabilities have a wide array of different disability-related needs, and we didn't want to create a law that was so rigid that said you can only use the funds in an account for medical expenses or for a wheelchair or for, you know, accessible houses. Those are all things that you can use the funds for, but we didn't want to make specific definitions like that. We wanted to make sure it was broad so that people can address the vast majority of their needs with these ABLE dollars. Just to kind of put a point in that, we know that even these ABLE dollars can be used for things like basic living expenses, and that there's no medical necessity for what you spend these dollars on. So you don't have to go to a doctor. The doctor doesn't have to say, yeah, you need a shower chair, and then you can go use your ABLE dollars for that. There's none of that. It's much more broad. You have much more control over these dollars than you would think. So it's important to know that there's a lot of flexibility there. So the next slide shows just some of the what I call buckets that Congress has provided for in terms of the different categories that these qualified disability expenses might fall under. And you can see there again a very wide range of different things, right? That being said, it is important to note that if you do spend the funds outside the confines of the law or in an inappropriate way for non-qualified expenses, those will be subject to tax penalties and consequences, and probably more importantly, in my opinion, they could affect your eligibility for your Medicaid, for your Social Security, for your HUD, for things like that. So it's important, while it is a broad list of things that you can use the funds on, it's important to know, it's important to make sure that you're not misusing the dollars, because it can have very real consequences. Okay, so we want to talk about, again, one of the most transformative aspects about ABLE, again, is being able to save, for the first time in many circumstances, large amounts of money without having to jeopardize, without having to give up your very important and significant benefits, many times Medicaid, supports and services that allow a person with a disability to live independently, right? So when I describe this, I say, you know, the funds in the ABLE account are disregarded for most federal means tested benefits. And the reason I say most is because there is one exception, and we did touch on this earlier in the presentation, but I want to say it again. For folks that are receiving SSI and also have an ABLE account, it's only the first $100,000 in the ABLE account that's actually disregarded, right? And once the account goes over $100,000, then that person's SSI cash benefit, that monthly cash benefit that's provided to SSI beneficiaries, will be temporarily suspended until such time as the account falls back below that $100,000 threshold. So it's important to note, you know, the program's been around for a couple years now. It's been, you know, about $15,000 is all you've been able to put into it. So nobody's reaching this $100,000 limit yet, but it is something that's important to note for people who are ABLE account owners and receiving SSI, of which, you know, there's going to be plenty of ABLE account owners who are not on SSI. So for those folks, you don't have to worry about it. But for the folks that do and are on SSI, it is important to know these things. So in terms of the other benefits, you know, obviously Medicaid is a huge, provides incredible supports and services for people with disabilities that are oftentimes absolutely essential. So I wanted to put this point into it. Even if that SSI cash benefit is suspended because the account goes over $100,000, their Medicaid benefits still remain intact. So that's important to know, because I know a lot of folks in a lot of states access Medicaid through their eligibility for SSI, so I wanted to make sure that folks fully understand that. SSI is the only federally funded public benefit that may be affected by the amount of money in an ABLE account, and that only takes place when the account exceeds $100,000, of which no account in the country has gotten near that yet, because they've only been available for a couple years, and we have an annual contribution limit. But eventually, some will, and people will have to pay attention to that. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about benefits as they relate to ABLE, And this is probably, to be very honest with everybody, this is probably the most criticized aspect about ABLE, so I want to make sure that folks understand it. And what it is, it's called the Medicaid payback provision. And it says that any assets, so any money remaining in the ABLE account when the account owner passes away, subject to outstanding qualified disability expenses that will be paid for first, can be used to reimburse a state for Medicaid payments made on behalf of that beneficiary that start after the creation of the ABLE account. So that's important to note. So we often say, this is an incredible, easily, financially accessible tool to help people save for their futures and help offset the cost of living a life with a disability, right, and help get around those asset limits. But this is not necessarily a wealth transfer tool, because we do know that in most circumstances, I would say at this point, the state, if you're being provided Medicaid services, will file a claim for a large amount of money, if not all of the money in the account, depending on how significant your use of Medicaid services are. So again, if you're not on Medicaid whatsoever, then you don't have to worry about that. But if you are, it is something to take into consideration. So that's important to note. So in terms of, we just talked about the National ABLE Alliance and their 15 states, and I'm sure that's going to grow because it's such an incredible opportunity for a state to have to offer a really great program to folks with disabilities in their states. But there are, 35-plus programs across the country that have launched ABLE programs, and those are growing. I would encourage folks to go to our ABLE National Resource Center website at www.ablenrc.org. That's a quick picture of the front page there, and you'll see that map there. Those blue states represent the states that have launched ABLE programs. You can click on any one of those, and it'll give you different characteristics about that particular ABLE program. Over on the right hand there, you can see in blue where it says Tool that compares state programs. You click that, you can pick up to 3 programs to compare side by side to figure out which program best meets your needs. We're not in the business of comparing programs. I'm sorry, we're not in the business of ranking programs. It really has to be done through the lens of the beneficiary themselves, depending on what their needs are. But I encourage folks to go to the website. There's a ton of information about other things related to ABLE. There's short videos, there's archived webinars, there's printable one-pagers, comparison tools. You name it, we got a lot of information up there. There's also an opportunity to submit questions on the website, and we try and get back to folks as quickly as possible. So that was a lot of information, and I wanted to get through that quickly because I wanted to make sure that we had plenty of time to introduce Ms. Rachel Mast, who is a Kansas ABLE account owner. As you guys saw previously, Kansas is one of the 15 states that is part of the National ABLE Alliance. Rachel is 18 years old, and she just graduated high school this past weekend. Rachel, congratulations on that great accomplishment. Rachel is a savvy saver. She deposits all of her birthday money into her Kansas ABLE account and is asking her friends and family to contribute to her ABLE account for graduation. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a bit. Rachel is a person with Down syndrome and plans to use the funds contributed and saved in her ABLE account to pay for college and to one day purchase a pink house that she hopes to live in. Rachel has actually played a pivotal role in getting ABLE passed through Congress, traveling to Washington, D.C. to speak with our congressmen and senators about the benefits of providing ABLE throughout the country. She's testified before the Kansas legislature when they were considering passing their state legislation to allow for an ABLE program in Kansas. And she was actually the very first person in the state of Kansas to open up an ABLE account, and I am extremely excited to have her with us today. And I just want to ask Rachel, I want to ask you just a couple questions here so that folks can get an idea of your experience with ABLE. So I want to say, you know, Rachel, I understand that you enrolled in the Kansas ABLE program, again, one of the National ABLE Alliance plans. Could you tell us what exactly motivated you, or could you tell us why you enrolled in an ABLE program?
Well, I want to save money so I could be more independent and live my dreams and help to pass the ABLE Act by talking to my senators and congressmen.
Excellent, excellent. I know it must have been a great experience to be the first person to open up an ABLE account, especially after all the hard work that I know you did speaking with your congressmen and your senators from Kansas to make sure that this was an opportunity not only for yourself, but for millions of people out there with disabilities. So, you know, on behalf of the ABLE National Resource Center and myself, as my brother has his ABLE account, I want to thank you for all your hard work in getting the law passed. And I'm excited that you are taking advantage of being able to save for your future. Rachel, was setting up the account pretty easy? Absolutely. I'm curious, was setting up the account pretty easy? You know, how long did it take you to set up the account?
Well, my mom and dad helped me to set up my account to the computer, so it took about 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I think this certainly is a testimonial towards the information that we got previously by some of our other presenters in terms of the ease in which somebody can open up an account. You said just 10 minutes there, Rachel. That's incredible. That's great. I'm glad to hear that this is a it sounds like it's a user-friendly enrollment process, which is something that I know that all the ABLE programs are trying to make sure that it's simple to set up. We know that there's other tools out there, such as Special Needs Trust, that have great benefits. And in fact, there's no reason why somebody can't have both a Special Needs Trust and an ABLE account. But we do know that setting up a Special Needs Trust oftentimes requires a lot more time. It requires, in many circumstances, getting a lawyer involved and a lot more money. So it's really incredible to know that there's this option out there that can be accessed easily from a financial standpoint. And like you said, Rachel, you know, provided that you meet the eligibility criteria, only takes a few minutes to set up. So that's really great. Rachel, in terms of, you know, being able to save money for your future, I know we touched on a couple things, but maybe you could let us know again. What do you hope to use the money saved in your ABLE account for? What are you saving for?
Well, I want to save my money for college and my pink house. I want to go to college so I can get a good job and save money for my pink house.
Awesome, awesome. That's great. Well, that's very exciting. I'm going to switch to the next thing here. Again, Rachel, I want to say congratulations on your graduation. I understand you just graduated this past weekend. That's wonderful. I do want to ask you a question because I know that this is something that I thought was especially creative of you to do, and it plays into one of the great benefits of the Kansas program as well as the other ABLE programs that are with the National ABLE Alliance. How did you use your ABLE account to help celebrate your graduation this last weekend? Oh, Rachel, you there? Oh, I hope we didn't lose Rachel. Oh, I think maybe we lost Rachel. Maybe she'll come back to us. But I did want to highlight, as everybody can see on their screen, Rachel graduated this past weekend and took out, I believe it's an ad in her graduation booklet, wherein she is utilizing the contribution platform that is associated with her program so that people can contribute and say congratulations and contribute money towards Rachel's future and towards her ambition with college and getting a job and things like that. Maybe there's somebody from the National ABLE Alliance who can tell us again a little bit more about that giving platform that Rachel is taking advantage of here.
Hey, Chris, yeah, this is Rob. I can speak to that. So it really is a very user-friendly feature that we have in the plans where folks, when they log in to access their account, they're able to click a button that'll bring them to a page that shows them a unique UGift code that's associated with their account. and we provide different ways for them to share that with friends and family very easily, whether it's through email or through social media. And once the friends and family members get that unique code, they just need to visit the website ugiftable.com, where they'll be prompted to enter the code, and then they can set up the contribution into the ABLE account. So we found that it's really been adopted very well and is found to be very convenient and a nice, easy way for people to provide these monetary gifts that they really haven't been able to in the past because they want to avoid tripping any of the resource limits.
That's great. That's great. And yeah, that's excellent. So they just go to the website, they type in that individual code, so you're not having to give anybody your account number or anything like that. It's totally user-friendly. Anybody can do it from anywhere. All they need to do is have access to the internet. Is that right?
That's right. We've really tried to streamline it and make it as easy as possible for folks to help engage in people's savings.
That's great. That's great. And yeah, I had heard of it, but I hadn't seen it in use. And this is a great example that Rachel has provided us in terms of the different ways that you can have friends and family support you, be it a birthday or be it Christmas time or be it for a situation like this wherein she just graduated. I remember, just very quickly, we got about 6 minutes. When I was growing up with my brother, I can still remember hearing my parents tell my grandparents, who used to give the grandchildren some money for their birthdays. I remember hearing them say, don't give TJ's my brother, don't give TJ any cash. He can't hold a lot of cash because it could jeopardize his benefits, of which he's provided a lot of supports and services that he needs. So this is an excellent alternative for people who want to support friends and family, but because of these rules associated with Medicaid and Social Security and things like that, aren't able to. In addition to that, I do want to highlight another thing, and I know that you guys have talked about it, but it's incredible. The funds that are contributed into these accounts, of which the accounts are opened online, are actually invested. So they, presumably are, provided we're in a good market and things like that, they grow over time, which is really, really great. And not only do they grow over time, but they grow tax-free, which is pretty incredible as well, which just adds for another added bonus to help people with disabilities offset their disability-related expenses so that they can, thrive like anybody else. So that's really exciting. I do want to take a couple questions from the audience. We got about 5 minutes here. I see one. It says, is the ABLE account only for long-term needs, or can it be for an individual to save for a car or more high-tech wheelchair or another accommodation tool? So, anybody, Karen or Ben or Rob, Scott, anybody can take this question. Who would like it?
This is Karen. I'm happy to take it. The good news about the way, and I think Chris did a good job of explaining how ABLE was set up, but the good news about that is it's really for anything that improves the life of the individual with the disability. So you can save for the short term if you're saving for something that's more immediate and maybe you only need $5,000 for that, or you can certainly save for the long term and maybe even the short term is rent for next month. So it can be used for anything, whether you're saving, and that's why we have different investment options. So you can, if you need the money immediately, you may want to have it in the checking account. If you've got a long time horizon, you may choose to invest it in a more aggressive investment that is more in the stock market. So clearly we set up the investments to accommodate any of those savings goals that you might have.
Excellent, excellent. I just got an email saying Rachel is back on. Rachel, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay, sorry we lost you there. I was just talking about your graduation and again saying congratulations, and I was trying to tell people how you used ABLE to help celebrate your graduation. I didn't know if you wanted to say a couple things about that.
You want to say anything else?
Yeah. I thank you for putting on the call today for how much they are able. Again, thank you.
Well, thank you. I know we couldn't have had these opportunities without all the hard work that you did in Washington, D.C. and all the hard work that you've done in Kansas. So I appreciate you being a part of the presentation today, and I want to let people know Rachel is also one of our 9 2018 ABLE advisors. We've chosen 9 individuals from across the country to highlight as national spokespersons. You can go check out their stories on our website. I encourage you to do so. We're going to be following these folks for the rest of the year, chronicling their experiences with ABLE, helping people understand the great opportunities that are associated with being an ABLE account owner. So again, Rachel, thank you for participating today, and thank you for, absolutely. So I want to take just maybe 1 or 2 more questions. We got a couple minutes. Okay, this is a great question. Does the U-Gift option warn the gifter if the account already has reached its $15,000 max?
Yeah, so Chris, this is Rob. So while there wouldn't be a warning up front when you're trying to enter in the gift, we would put a block on the contribution if it did happen to reach the maximum contribution amount, and that money would simply be sent back to the source that it came from with the notification that it did put it over the limit, so that we want to make sure we're protecting folks from going over that annual limit.
Great. Another question real quickly. Are there variations for each state within the Alliance, or are all Alliance plans the same?
Yeah, this is Rob. I could take this one as well. I guess, you know, the plan, part of the benefit of the Alliance is that we're able to maximize efficiency by having some very common elements of the program, such as the investment lineup and the enrollment process itself. However, each state really does have its own look and feel and branding, and certainly anything that's unique to that particular state in terms of rules or regulations are accounted for in the disclosure documentation. So there is a level of uniqueness to each state plan, but with a common core set of key features.
Gotcha. Another question, is there a maximum amount allowed to open an ABLE account? There is a $15,000 annual limit, but what about opening an account?
If someone wanted to open it with $15,000, that would be perfectly fine, and then they'd be done for the year.
But I think if the question is there a minimum, they are asking if there's a maximum, but if there is a minimum, I mean, one of our goals was to make sure that anybody could save. So we do have a very low minimum. It's $25 to open an account. So you don't have to have the $15,000.
Gotcha. Excellent. Okay. So with that, I know we do have some other questions, but unfortunately, we are out of time. It is 3 o'clock. I want to again thank all the speakers that gave presentations. I appreciate everybody taking time out of their schedules to introduce us and to answer some questions about the National ABLE Alliance programs. It's an exciting group of states that have worked extremely hard to get their ABLE programs up and running and providing this great opportunity to people with disability in their states. And thank you to Rachel again for providing us with her experience with the Kansas ABLE program. I want to say encourage everybody to check out the National ABLE Alliance website and look at the different programs there. I want to encourage folks to go to the ablenrc.org website for more information related to ABLE accounts, and certainly reach out to me if you have any other questions. And with that, I think that wraps us up. So again, thank you to everybody, and thank you to those who were able to join us today. We'll hopefully talk to you again next month on our monthly webinars. Keep an eye out for what the topics are going to be in the future and the different programs we'll be highlighting in the upcoming months. Everybody have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Did a good job.